This is J.G. Hertzner. You're listening to NX 7062 Podcast.
And welcome to the NX 7062 Podcast. Once again, it is a very chilly Monday night. First actual bit of cold we're having here on the East Coast. And I guess the gremlins in the machine from last week we're still hanging out a little bit. That's why I'm a couple minutes late starting out, because I had some new technical glitches this week. Chris Hunter, hello. Oh my God, how are you? It is so good to see you. I've missed you. We're gonna have to. You and I. We're gonna do one of these podcasty things again real soon. Probably when Strange New Worlds comes up, because we're definitely going to be talking about Anson Mount sometime soon. And thank you so much. I appreciate that. Tonight's show is all about the animals of Star Trek. So Chris Hunter, think about what your favorite pet on Star Trek was if you had one, because that's what we're talking about tonight. So you'll have to let me know. What pet you had that was a favorite if you had one. Because I was having technical difficulties and because I didn't get a chance to check out my green screen choice for tonight, I apologize. It's supposed to be Porthos. Maybe if I move one way or the other, you'll get to see him. Because Porthos there we go. All right. This is going to be my pose for the night so you can see Porthos. This is actually from A Night in Sick Bay, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Oh, see, look at that, Chris. You didn't even really have to think. This is Chris's favorite Star Trek pet, Gary Seven's cat. Hold on. Hey, Travis. Good to see you. Oh, all right. That's not what I was aiming for. That's what I was aiming for. Gary Seven's cat. That's the one that turned into a woman for 5 seconds at the very end. That was Assignment Earth, I think was the title of the episode, if I'm not mistaken. But if you go out on social media, I was asking for the last couple of days who people's favorite Star Trek pet was, because we're talking about animals tonight, and everybody said this guy, Porthos, who is definitely my favorite. Yes, because it's Enterprise. So, I mean, that just kind of goes without saying. But I think Porthos, out of all of them, I mean, he had an entire episode built around him, A Night in Sick Bay, and I was just talking to somebody about this morning, where Captain Archer basically was about to throw diplomacy out the window if Porthos had died from the pathogen that he picked up on the surface of that planet. He was pretty much ready to throw it all away for his dog, and who could blame him? I do too. Porthos is awesome. Not only was Porthos awesome, but the story about how Archer got him from his ex-girlfriend's mom when he was a puppy. So he'd had him his entire life, and it sort of followed him, because if you remember, if anybody has seen Star Trek, the 2009, the first movie, when they find Scotty in that back of beyond ice world. First of all, he actually had a Tribble in a cage next to him, just to kind of, he kind of got Enterprise and TOS all in one shot, because he had the Tribble in the cage next to him, and then they were talking about how he accidentally beamed Admiral Archer's prize beagle in some sort of experiment, and they didn't know where he ended up. I'm assuming probably not Porthos, maybe Porthos 2.0 or 3.0 by that time. But so Porthos started Archer on a beagle ownership course, because I think he had said in Night in Sick Bay that he's had dogs his whole life, but never a beagle until Porthos. So Porthos is the winner of the impromptu Who's Your Favorite Star Trek Animal social media poll that I took, as it should be, concerning the fact, again, Enterprise. But this I do have to say that this podcast has been inspired by Discovery's latest character, or one of Discovery's latest characters, Grudge the Queen Cat, who is Book's cat, who we met on the very first episode. She is a Maine Coon which is a beautiful breed of cat. Personally, I am not big on the long-haired cats, but I did actually rescue a Maine Coon once. Oh, here we go. In the novel, Porthos rematerialized on the Enterprise. Oh, well, there you go. So you haven't read the novels yet. Thanks for that. Appreciate that. Travis, I always love to hear from the fans out there that know a little bit more than I do or have read a novel that I haven't quite read yet. So Grudge the Cat appeared, and she is a Maine Coon. And like I said, I rescued a Maine Coon once and gave it to a friend of mine who basically is in the business of rescuing cats. And she lived out a very happy life with my friends in central Pennsylvania. So she is big, she is a queen, and she is very present. She has her own Twitter and Facebook accounts. In fact, she liked my Facebook shout out to her. So I am on Grudge the Cat's radar, which is not a bad place to be. The one thing that I found interesting when I was researching this is when you sit down and you look at it, first of all, there are a lot more pets in Enterprise or in Star Trek, I should say, than one might have thought. Because obviously we know Porthos, we know Spot the cat. If you've been following since TOS, you know that Spock actually had I'm probably going to completely screw this up. Spock had a shallot, and it was named Lachaya. And it was mentioned in Journey to Babel when his mother mentioned the pet, and they were making fun of him because it was a big teddy bear, but he said yes, but it had 6 rows of fangs. And then they actually created Lashaya. This is where you find out the animal's name was in an episode of the animated series. They when Spock, I think Spock used the Guardian of Forever. And went back in time to his own childhood, and you got to meet his little pet. And it was a big fuzzy teddy bear with vicious teeth. But the other thing that I found that was really interesting is that O'Brien actually owned a tarantula, which is something I did not remember from my TNG watching days. He showed it to Barclay. I think had something to do with him getting over his arachnophobia. Like I said, Scotty had the Tribble in a cage in the 2009 version of Trek. Janeway had Molly the dog. Captain Picard had a fish. They're low maintenance, makes sense. But Captain Picard also rode horses. So not that horses are technically pets, but they are animals of Enterprise. So let's see. And Barclay, when he appeared in Voyager, for anybody that's watched Voyager, you know that Barclay kind of comes in at the end and helps them get home. And he actually had a cat he named Neelix. Neelix the cat, who I read as I was researching this, ate some of Deanna's chocolate. Deanna came to visit, and Neelix got into her chocolate ice cream. But for those of you that don't know, chocolate is actually also bad for cats, which is something I didn't know until I've always known that it's bad for dogs, but it's also bad for cats. So not setting a very good example. Cheese is also not the best for dogs, but we all know that Archer over here fed Porthos cheese, even though he wasn't supposed to. But the one thing that I found interesting in my research, and one thing that sort of struck me as interesting, Klingons had pets. They had the Tards, those big, ugly looking war dogs. Which we were kind of introduced to when Krug in Star Trek, in Star Trek 3 in The Search for Spock, he had one with him on the bridge. And remember how upset he was when the poor thing died when they fired on the ship? I mean, so even Klingons have a soft spot in their hearts for their pets. And yet Denobulans, again, going back to A Night in Sickbay, Denobulans really don't seem to have a concept of pets. He and Archer were having this discussion. Oh, didn't you have kids? I mean, he's got his Peruvian bat that they were chasing around at one point, but everything in his care in sickbay served a purpose. It wasn't for companionship. There was a medicinal purpose to his leeches and to everything. So you really got the feeling he didn't have a pet. And in fact, he pretty much said Denobulans don't have pets. He's often mussed at Archer's attachment and fondness of Porthos, because everything in Phlox's sickbay, whether it was just, it's here, it serves a purpose though. We don't have pets. That one sought after creature, it was sought after because it had one of its organs was very tasty. I don't remember which one. I just remember Archer's arguing with him, and Flux is like, "Oh no, it's delicious." And Archer's like, yeah, okay, so you really don't get the pet thing." Although it's interesting, he didn't get the pet thing, but yet a lot of the times that Archer had to leave Porthos in somebody else's care, for some reason he ended up leaving him with the doctor, I guess, with his like 7 veterinary degrees or something. He figured if nothing else, the doctor at least knew how to take care of him. So I just found that interesting that, Klingons have pets and Denobulans. But then again, Denobulans also have 3 wives and however many children they have with their 3 wives. And they probably just don't have any room for pets in their lives, considering how big their actual families are. Do we have, Travis, do we have a little bit of arachnophobia? Which is completely understandable. I have no problems with that. There are certain things that I just can't, I can't handle either. Really goofy, and just to tell you that I can completely understand where you're coming from, Travis. Whenever somebody's nose gets broken or they get punched in the face, I usually have to leave the room because I broke my nose twice. So there are certain things I can't watch on TV, and that's one of them, is watching anybody. Nip Tuck, the first time they did a rhinoplasty, I love Nip Tuck, but the first time they did a rhinoplasty on Nip Tuck, I couldn't watch it. So I completely understand. Even though it's just a TV show, I completely understand. There we go. Captain Pike's horses. Domestic, that is an absolutely perfect thing to bring up. Because Chris, I have to ask Chris if Chris knew that, if he knew the name of Captain Pike's horses from back in the menagerie / the cage days. I forgot about that scene with oh my God, how did I forget her name? All right, I should just stop now if I can't remember her name. Chris, I'm totally embarrassing myself. I'm sorry. Anyway. But yeah, and Picard had his horses, like I said, and Shatner is a horseman in real life, and he was a horseman on the show too when they did Generations, and he was riding around the Nexus on those gorgeous horses. One of them, honestly, I'm a huge equestrian. I actually whispered to Shatner during my photo op a couple years ago that I liked Arabians, but he gets very focused and didn't respond to that. But what I loved is, and I think they were either Shatner's horses or something that they used in Generations. And there's a point in Generations where he and Picard are out, and they're having the discussion about, he's trying to get Shatner to leave the Nexus to help him defeat Soren. And they're standing there talking, and Shatner, you don't see him move. This is the mark of a true equestrian. You don't see him move or signal the horse, but the horse does a trick. Horses don't just sidestep naturally. That's not a thing. So I love just sitting in the theater and knowing the type of equestrian Shatner is, and he does dressage, and to just watch him, just that little maneuver. I always thought that was pretty cool. It's probably my favorite part of Generations, was watching Shatner and Sir Pat in the horses, and that one little perfect scene. So anyway, in case you can't tell, I'm a huge horse person. I also happen to own cats and dogs. I have an affinity for animals myself. I don't know if you guys out there have, but I've gotten into a couple of conversations with people about how you name your animals after your fandoms. Have you ever seen this? People go out to the rooms, they get a new animal. They're like, oh, look, the newest member of my family, give it a Star Trek name. My dog's name is Anakin, and I thought I need a black pug. That's the dog I decided I wanted, was a black pug. And I had the name Anakin picked out before I even had the dog. And then I got fortunate. My friend's grandmother was actually breeding her black pug to a male black pug. So I got to go and pick Anakin. I think I was the first person to pick him. I picked him when he was 2 weeks old. And I have had him since he was 7 weeks old, and he's 15 and a half now. And he's definitely dark side, light side He's got his good days and his bad days. Travis, that is awesome. I used to ride. I mean, I still ride. I mean, you put me on a horse, I can ride a horse. But I actually went to a horseback riding camp. I learned how to ride English, so I can actually jump, which I always thought was pretty cool. So I have Anakin, and then I have another cat whose name is Kal-El. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, I have my big old Tuxedo who's roaming around. He's too big to pick up, even if he was here. And that is Reed, after, of course, Lieutenant Malcolm Reed. So I do have pets named after all of my fandoms. I actually used to have beta fish. I started getting beta fish, and I used to name them Porthos, and then they just all died, so I stopped getting beta fish. And Kal-El, you all probably know by his other name, aka Podcat, but he hasn't actually been doing much of the podcasting. I think he's I don't know, he's gotten a little camera shy. I don't even know where he is right now. But I don't know if you guys have any pets, if you want to share some pet names. And I should have looked this up because I think I remember seeing something on my Twitter feed from you, Domestic, about pets in Star Trek. Why am I thinking that you had a really great response that if my computer hadn't been giving me the problems that it had been giving me earlier, I would have had it all pulled up on the screen. Let me see if I can get into Twitter right now and see what's what. I don't even know. Oh, look at that. It is the right Twitter. I have so many Twitter accounts. I never know which one is queued up. They're all, oh, wait. Grudge the Cat. Okay, Grudge the Cat may become interesting, but Porthos is definitely number one. Yeah, I like that. Porthos is number one, but Grudge could be interesting. I'm interested to see what happens with Grudge. Absolutely. Because except for, I mean, that's the other thing about Porthos is I think the reason Porthos is probably so popular is because he was a focal point. I mean, you never saw Archer wander, and at least once an episode you got to see that sweet little beagle face. Unlike all these other, I mean, Spot's best scene was when they made when Data got emotional over finding Spot in the wreckage of the Enterprise, again back to Generations, and Deanna said another family reunited. You wanted to cry right along with Data that he found Spot, and it was great. Data got Spot because having a pet made was something on his journey towards humanity. And I think once he got his emotion chip, I mean, that kind of brought it all home. Yes, you should. Magic Lasso is in the house. Magic Lasso, thank you so much. Oh, hello, Magic Lasso. And yes, you absolutely should say meow. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time and tuning in. And yeah, I mean, is Grudge just going to be one of those things that they talk about a lot and you don't see her? I mean, working with cats. I know John Billingsley was not a fan of actually working with the dog. He mentioned that to me once. But yeah, I mean, a dog's a little more interesting. I mean, I love my cats, and my cats all have their own personalities, and they are all incredibly interesting creatures, but you can't really train them, and they're cute when they want to be cute, and it's probably a lot harder to get a cat to actually do something on camera besides just lay there. So yeah, I think we're gonna have to see. And yes, I absolutely get weepy every time he finds Spot in that wreckage. It's like, it's coming. I loved Brent Spiner's performance in Generations, watching Data, cope with the emotion chip. I thought was great. And then you move him into First Contact, and Picard's like, shut it off. And he went, okay. Picard said, sometimes I envy you. But yeah, I think it really brings home pet ownership to watch Data get choked up when he finally finds Spot in the wreckage. I think that's pretty amazing. Let's see. They haven't. Oh, and how could we forget? Oh my God, number one, that gorgeous pit bull from Picard. There's another beautiful dog, which he should have taken with him, a la Picard or a la Archer. He could have taken number one with him. But no, one had to stay back and, I don't know, stomp grapes or something. But, and I know that Patrick Stewart did, when they said he was going to have a dog, I think Patrick was the one that kind of said, well, if the captain's going to have a dog, the dog's going to be a pit bull. Because Captain Picard is a huge proponent of pit bull rights, and he fosters them. He fosters senior dogs. If you follow him on anything on social media, he will post these amazing pictures of the pit bulls that he has fostered, and more power to him, because I feel like pit bulls get the worst rap. And I'm not saying that people don't abuse them, that people don't take advantage of what can be their nature to be aggressive, to take advantage of their propensity for aggressiveness. I mean, because a lot of it is how they're raised. And I mean, I had a friend that had a pit bull, and I dropped his kids off. I was doing him a favor. I stopped by his house. I was dropping one of his kids off or something. I went in the house. They had this pit bull, and I hadn't met him before, and he was this beautiful dog, and all he did was stand up, put both paws on my shoulders like this, and give me a big hug and a kiss. Hello, like, hey, happy to know ya. Dogs are dogs, and they all have different personalities. And I remember when I took Anakin to his training classes, and they were telling, dogs are like people. You can't expect dogs just to like everybody. They have their own personalities, and they're not going to like every dog they meet. They're not going to like every person that they meet. They're cognizant. They have their likes and their dislikes. The other thing about animals is I personally feel that they are a way better judge of character. So if if your animal if a cat doesn't like somebody, trust the cat. That's all I'm saying. I actually have a black cat too. His name's Stevie. That just kind of came out of his renaming, because he'd been named when I adopted him. He's a black cat. It was National Black Cat Day the other day, so I posted a picture of him on my Facebook page. I love having a black cat for Halloween, and for all the Friday the 13th, there will always be pictures of Stevie somewhere. Oh my gosh, Stevie, come here. See, look at that. Podcat might not make it out, but Stevie actually just walked in. I don't know if he's going to come over and say hello, but come on. He's looking at me like I'm crazy. Let me see if I can get him, because he is absolutely beautiful. Nope. Changed his mind. He was up on the desk, and I thought, so close. So close. He doesn't like to get picked up, or I'd throw him on my lap, but I would really, really risk getting gored. Are you going to come up and say hello to the viewing audience, or are you going to stay down there? Come on. I know I've said cats aren't trainable, and they're really not, but mine, sometimes if they're in the mood and you kind of ask them to come up and they think they're going to get their chin scratched, they do. What I love, I think, about animals. Oh, wait, there he is. There's an ear. What I love about the animals in Star Trek, I just think it just shows that no matter what century you're in, where you are in time or space, animals are kind of like an ever-present thing, unless you're Denobulan. Animals are just the best companions. Even for androids, there's something about having a pet. I've always said they are the best roommates, because they don't fight you over what you want to watch on television. They are unconditional love. When you come home after a long day, which would you rather have? A roommate asking you a ton of questions or playing really loud music, or just an animal that just says, hi, how are you? Can we cuddle now? I mean, seriously. I really do. I think they might make the best roommates. And I just think that the fact that Star Trek is so carefully throughout its entire run has just made a point of including animals, and including, again, it just seems to be universal. You meet all these different species, and they all seem to have pets. Even the freaking Klingons. Come on. And I mean, yeah, you would expect them, I don't know, like you might not expect them to have that kind of emotion towards a pet. But again, when you saw Krug getting upset that his quote unquote dog, for lack of a better, died, I mean, so I love the universal message of Star Trek that across the galaxy, it doesn't matter. Animal companionship is something that so many other species believe in. Again, except Denobulans, which just really throws you when you sit down and think about it. Anyway, that pretty much covers the whole, animals and Star Trek thing. It was just a fun little topic because I thought, I like to talk about the people that make up Star Trek, but the four-legged characters in some instances are just as important. Like I said, Porthos had an entire episode around, whether he was going to live or die, and watching Archer just, dropped everything, diplomacy and everything. He's like, no, Porthos is my priority. And I think if you've ever owned an animal, then you absolutely totally get and understand that. What I didn't mention, and I will mention now because we are wrapping things up, is that Lambda Quadrant, my favorite LGBTQ nonprofit, basically because I co-founded it. Oh, yes, Travis, I did very briefly mention the fact that Picard had a fish. His name was, I have it in my notes. His name was Livingston. And in fact, the picture I saw was from iBorg. So yes, I did mention the fish. But thank you. I just mentioned him briefly because, what do you say about a fish? They're pretty. Anyway, but Lambda Quadrant, my favorite LGBTQ nonprofit, again, co-founded it. We are doing a third HoloCon. We are having a third virtual convention because we promised that we would if STLV got canceled, which it did, officially canceled for 2020, moved to 2021. It's happening in August. It is no longer a CBS sanctioned event. So it's kind of like a generic convention that just happens to focus on Star Trek, even though they can't say that it's a Star Trek convention. I'm still going to call it STLV. Aw, beagles are awesome. My aunt had a beagle. Beagles are awesome. So because of all this, and because we just can't wait to hang out with everybody until August, we are doing another HoloCon. Yes, we have dates for the HoloCon. It is December 5th and 6th. It is a Saturday and Sunday. And we don't have any programming yet. But if you are interested in, if you have suggestions maybe that you'd like to give out, we are always interested. Everything. We're all over the place on social media at Lambda Quadrant. So just hit us up, Facebook, Instagram, so Twitter. You can hit us up there if you have any suggestions for any panels that you'd like to see. We're working on the programming now, and we are always open to suggestions. So we already have one celebrity guest who said that they participate, not saying who, because I haven't been told I'm allowed to mention it yet, but I do know for a fact that somebody's already said that they would do it. So more secrets, more announcements for later. I am planning on being at STLV along with Lambda Quadrant. We are planning on being at STLV. Y'all know how much I love it. So you know that even though it's only November, I will be talking about it from now until August. And I will tell you all right now, as I have every other time, which is basically once, that anybody that's got questions for any of the celebrities at STLV, if you go to Creation's website, they're now listed in alphabetical order. That's the other thing. Now that they're not doing it with CBS anymore, they have to list all of their attendees in alphabetical order, not by show or anything along those lines. All right, you know what? I will pass this along. I know we are definitely doing at least one other makeup tutorial this time around. So I will pass that along, that doing bulk and makeup should be on the agenda, and I'll see what I can do for you. It's not a problem. But anyway, so if you want to head over at any point to Creation's website, they have the new website they're calling it the 55-year mission. If you head over to their website, if you click over to the guest list and you scroll down the guest list, they're in alphabetical order by first name. Anybody that is listed there and it says they're going to be in the vendor's room and you have a question for them, you know what? Feel free to ask me or send it to me now. I will save it until August, I promise. I'll just make a little file on my computer. But I will be doing the same thing this year. I don't know if I'm going to do video. I haven't figured out if if I want to do it that way, or if I'm just going to record it, or however I feel like doing it. But anyway, I will be more than happy to ask questions of any Star Trek characters that you would like that are in the vendor's room that I can hopefully get to answer questions. Yes, domestic. To answer this question, it is on the website, and it will not be Quark's. They're calling it Jimmy's Bar, I think. And yes, and Chase is still going to be performing there. What has changed? Obviously, they're not going to be able to have any of those cool announcements like they did when Sir Pat showed up, said, "Hi, I'm doing a new series. Bye." They can't do that anymore. They're not going to have those cool exhibits like they did. They had a Discovery exhibit 2 years ago, and then last year was the Picard exhibit. They're not going to have any of that because that was also applied by CBS. Again, like the website had to be changed. They can't even use the headshots from the shows. All the headshots for all the guests are completely generic. So, but they're all there. And again, they're not even listed by show anymore. They have to list them in alphabetical order. But if anybody has any questions, you know that I can probably talk to the Enterprise people. So if anybody has any questions for the Enterprise people, let me know. I have no problems approaching them. If you've got questions for Chase, if you've got questions for Nicole DeBoer, if you were here last week and you know that sort of all fell apart, with that was the weirdest thing. I have never had issues with lags until Nicole came on the show, which was pretty sad. But if you have a question for Nikki that maybe you didn't get to ask her last week, let me know. Nicole will answer questions for me 9 times out of 10. Again, if they're not busy. But I mean, 5 days worth of conventioning, you can usually find a window, either the very beginning of the show or towards the end of the show where things are starting to calm down, that I can usually go get those questions answered. So go check out the guest list and let me know. And again, any excuse to go talk to Connor and Dominic, hit me up so I don't have to think of questions to ask them. I'm always open. So guys, thanks as always for hanging out with me. And you can find me all over the interwebs and all over social media, just by looking for at NX7062. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on, I do also have a Facebook page. So Twitter, Facebook. I do not Instagram. I don't know. I don't Instagram for the podcast, but Facebook and Twitter, you can always find me. Suggestions for the show, guests you would like me to have on the show. I am working on getting some guests. If Chris Hunter's still here, he and I are going to do a show at some point, I'm sure, probably closer to when Anson Mount and Strange New Worlds comes out, because I would love to talk to him about, Captain Pike again, because he is a font of information when it comes to Captain Pike, as we all know. Anyway, thank you guys all for coming and hanging out with me every Monday night here live at 10. I love seeing you all. Stay warm, and until I see you next week, live long and prosper.
This is Nicole DeBoer, and you've been listening to the NX7062 podcast.